This podcast contains detailed plot spoilers, adult language, and mature themes. Listener discretion is advised. Podcast of Rare Antiquities, episode 48, where today we will suggest all those who eventually die, they should first get some killer speakers in their coffins and rock and roll themselves when they are dead, as we dissect and analyze 2018's Panos Cosmatos film, Mandy, starring Nicolas Cage, Andrea Riseborough, and Linus Roach. This is Harry.
And this is Geoff.
Welcome to 2019, Geoff. Happy New Year for the first podcast of the year. Hopefully we will record more than 2 or 3 we did in 2018 there.
Yeah, man, Happy New Year, and I'm looking forward to lots of Rare Antiquities this year.
Hopeful Rare Antiquities.
Yes, indeed.
So let's get right into this. Mandy. So as I mentioned last time, I needed some Nicolas Cage in my life, a little bit of a renewal. I heard a lot of really good things, a good word of mouth on this film. So usually we go back and do a little bit older films here, but this is one that was from last year. Tell me, what did you know of this film before I even announced it? Was it on your radar? I think it seemed like it was based on your response from what I recall. Just let me know. What'd you hear about this one?
Yeah, no, it was on my radar. I had heard of it. I'd read a review of it that was very positive. I kind of knew sort of generally, I don't want to say I knew what it was about, because I definitely did not after I watched it, but it was on the radar. I'd heard about it and had been looking forward to checking it out. So glad we got the chance here.
So did that review kind of spoil things somewhat for you? Or
not at all. No, it did. Not even fucking close, dude. And it was good because the review, they took pains to make sure that nothing was spoiled. And I had other than the concept of it being a Nicolas Cage revenge thriller, no fucking idea what was going on in this movie.
Yeah, I hear you. And Nicolas Cage revenge thrillers are par for the course of most of the films he's making these days anyways. He's become more of a parody these days, but I still find him to be a very intriguing actor, because I think he goes places that just no other actor is willing to go, whether that's just Nicolas Cage himself. But I think it's a combo of that's who he is versus what he loves about acting or film. We've touched on Nicolas Cage before on this podcast when we did Raising Arizona. Has your opinion of him changed in any way? I wouldn't just say since that podcast, but over the past couple of years, knowing that he's kind of pushing out so many films over and over again just for a quick buck, it seems like these days? Or do you think that there's something to some of his movies, if you've seen any of them, that's worth your while? I don't know. Just what's your general thought and vibe on this guy now?
Yeah, I guess, the answer to the question is both a yes and a no. He kind of is churning out movies because, as I understand it, he's got a little bit of a bill with the IRS that he has to settle up. So he's definitely a guy who, on the one hand, he definitely does need to, it looks like he's the guy who needs to make a paycheck, regular paycheck. And he probably shouldn't have bought so many T-Rex skulls. He's an idiosyncratic character in real life. My opinion of him as an actor, as a performer, is kind of the same. So as he's a fan of the silent era, I really appreciate the fact that he brings a physicality to his performances that a lot of other actors don't. And yeah, you could call it overacting, over the top. I don't think that's the case. I don't think he ever overacts or overdoes it. He brings a lot of his personality and idiosyncrasies to his performances. And I feel like he's unfairly maligned for doing the exact same thing that a lot of other actors are celebrated for. Like an example, be like Tom Cruise. You watch a Tom Cruise movie and Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise in those movies. And for my part, I love watching Tom Cruise in movies. For all of his oddities in real life, he brings himself to those roles and you feel it. It's a guy who loves doing what he does, and he brings a lot of physicality, a lot of his personality into his performances. And it's great. It's honest. It's engaging. And so I feel like Tom Cruise can do it. And people are like, yeah, Tom Cruise hanging from a fucking helicopter. That's awesome. And it is awesome. And then Nicolas Cage does, it's a little different when Nick does it, as odder. But when he does it, people are like, oh, he's overdoing it. No, he's doing the same thing. It's just, he's just got a different way about him. And I think it's great. I appreciate it. He's one of a kind. I wish he was in better movies because he'll take a script and it's probably not the best idea, but I want him to keep being him. I think it's awesome, and I think it's unique, and I think we need more of it in mainstream movies.
Oh, I agree exactly with what you said. Yeah, I think the only thing here is I wish he just picked better projects, and then people could really celebrate how he acts and what he's bringing. Because I feel like a lot of mainstream performers are just doing the same thing. Like, they're trying to reflect realism, grounded realism, to the extent that you can't tell what someone's on paper versus acting versus real life, like how someone would react. But I can sometimes see elements of what Nicolas Cage does is how someone would react as well. That over the top, either enthusiasm or remorse or excitement or anger or frustration. I think that kind of energy is also real. And I've seen literally on Saturday night at a bar, I saw one of our friends react in a very similar way that Nicolas Cage does in this movie. And it's just uncanny that some people would say that's overacting, but I can completely see where they're coming from, because there's so much of that from the performances of Nicolas Cage that one then would just tend to typecast him as saying he's just always overreacting or overacting. But I find that he can reach down and bring out something that other actors can't, and that's what I really appreciate him for.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate part is, as you mentioned, the projects that he's picked are so shitty for the most part, 80-20 or 90-10. But I love that 10% that's there. They're gems. And we will get into whether this one is a gem or not. But how about do you want me to start off with a plot synopsis here and then maybe a little bit of trivia, and then we can start digging into this thing?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Okay, so you're going to have to forgive me. I'm going to do something a bit different with the plot synopsis here, so bear with me. I don't know how this will go, but I put this together in 20 minutes, so we'll see what happens here.
All right.
I remember all my life cutting trees down to feed me and my wife, sitting in our log cabin, whispering to each other's past stories of family despair, falling asleep into each other's arms to relieve any fear. But the night transitions into morning, just another day. Strange cult worshippers passed your way. Locking eyes, they peered into your soul and saw a disguise which I never realized. Oh, Mandy, you came and you gave without taking, but they took you away. Oh, Mandy, they told you about the rabbit hole that is darkness. You were tempted but laughed at his wee-wee. Then they burned you alive while I watched it. And they left me alone to suffer. But I'm Nicolas Cage, so fuck them. It's time to embrace the darkness, to go deeper into a hole of madness. So I gather some weapons and find them, and I hack and I saw with utter mayhem, until nothing remains but corruptness. Oh, Mandy, I thought you came and gave without taking, but I followed you down the darkness, and now I'm left alone with this madness, as I drive down the road into blackness. But I'm Nicolas Cage, so fuck it. That's it. That's your synopsis.
I want a transcript of that. That was beautiful. I'm wiping away tears of joy and hilarity.
So the funny thing is the minute I heard of this movie, I thought of the song, and I'm not a Barry Manilow fan. This is the song. A couple of words or phrases were taken from that song, and obviously some of the melody. But I just remember Homer Simpson singing to himself in the mirror this song. So that's what's burned in my memory, is just Homer Simpson singing this, and that was the inspiration for the way to do this one. So,
well, I raised my glass of bourbon to you, Harry. That was a special moment on the podcast. That's the touchstone here, I think.
Well, I thought I'd do that, just saying Nicolas Cage is just chainsawing his way through a bunch of guys. So,
yeah, no, that was terrific. Good job.
Oh, thank you. So, Panos Cosmatos, who's the director, this is his second feature film. His first one as a director was a film called Beyond the Black Rainbow, and I saw an interview that Nicolas Cage and Linus Roach and Panos Cosmatos were doing, and they talked about Nicolas Cage seeing that film and just being inspired to work with this director. I don't know if he reached out to Cosmatos or Cosmatos reached out to Cage, but either way, he was a fan of his first film. You may like this. You may realize his name. He is the son of 80s action helmer George P. Cosmatos.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah.
So a couple of George Cosmatos' movies that you may be familiar with is Rambo Part 2, First Blood Part 2. He did Cobra, which I don't know if you've seen, but is another cult classic. And he did Tombstone.
Oh, that's where I know him from.
Tombstone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tombstone's such a good movie.
Yeah, so his father directed Tombstone, and Panos Cosmatos that was his first foray into filmmaking. He was second assistant director to Tombstone.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So that's, cool. Yeah, he hasn't done a lot of work. He was born in Italy, but he has a Greek ancestry. He grew up in Canada. His father relocated and lived in Victoria, BC all his life, so pretty much Cosmatos is Canadian for the most part. This movie, Mandy, appeared in Sundance 2018, the film festival. This is where it got its rounds and got the word of mouth that, this was a delight and something different for Cage as well as audience members here. So it was a critical darling during Sundance, and still to this day, people are still raving about this film. Its budget was $6 million. So far, domestically, it has made $1.4 million, but it didn't get a wide release or anything like that. This is more of an indie film. And its composer, Johan Johansson, that's the name. Sounds like a guy who plays hockey, but he died shortly after the soundtrack for this movie, and this film is dedicated to him. Linus Roach, you might recognize him. I'll actually just quiz you. Does he look familiar to you in any way?
He looks familiar, and I recognize the name, but I didn't look him up because I knew you were going to do some trivia, so I didn't want to spoil it.
Well, I didn't really look him up too much. I'll only say he was in Batman Begins. He was Bruce's father.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Why Do We Fall?
Yeah.
So that's who this guy is. I should have done more research, but I did not. Take that for what you will. Andrea Riseborough, I'm actually a fan of hers. I saw her on an episode of Black Mirror and absolutely loved it. It's one of my more favorite episodes.
Which episode was she on?
She was the one where she had to keep killing people for protecting something. I can't remember.
Yeah, I remember that episode. That episode was dark.
Yeah, that was dark. And it was good. She had a great performance in that one.
Yeah, she was really good. Yeah,
so I really like her, and I thought she did a great job in this movie as well. And that's pretty much the trivia. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, man. I didn't really do too much background looking there, but I had wondered where I'd seen her before. And that Black Mirror episode was a tough one. Yeah,
that was a tough one. Well, most Black Mirror episodes are.
Yeah, there's two where at the end you're like, oh, cool. And then everything else is, I'm going to go kill myself.
So why don't we get into this movie? So let's go back to the classic way we originated this podcast, and let's break it up into 3 acts. So I'd like the first act. Let's just talk about who Mandy and Red are. Red being Nicolas Cage, Mandy being Andrea Riseborough. Your introduction to them, as well as when the cult drives by and sees her right up to where the kidnapping starts. So that'll be the second act. And the second act will be about the kidnapping. That can be part of the second part of the discussion and her death. And then the third act can be Nicolas Cage's journey into revenge and how everything wraps up. So let's look in the first act here. What strikes you? What pops out to you with these characters and the setup here in this movie? All the way up to her kidnapping.
Yeah, okay. So there's a couple things that I made note of. So first off, I was like right from the start, I was really digging the cinematography, like how this movie was shot. It looked absolutely terrific from go. It had sort of an 80s movie feel. It was a little grainier, wasn't too sharp.
It's like Grindhouse. I wrote down kind of a Grindhouse feel.
Yeah, kind of a Grindhouse feel. I thought it was great. The atmosphere was just oozing with atmosphere. It was so good, and it was very sort of minimalist. So it was great. Even that one scene where like he first comes home and she's like sitting in the chair and he comes in, he's like, "Hi, honey, I'm home," kind of thing, and goes over and gives her a kiss. And it was such an elementary type of scene, and you knew that there was shit going on underneath with the ominous music and the weird lighting and stuff. It was so good. One thing I made note of, I think it was the first scene where he's driving, he's a logger, and he gets in the helicopter, and it's got that weird look on his face, which I didn't really dig deep into. But he's driving home in his car, in his station wagon in the woods. And there's a piece there. There's not a lot of exposition in this movie, which I really like. But there's a piece there. He's driving home, and he's listening to the radio. And Ronald Reagan's on the radio.
Yes.
That tells you when the movie's taking place.
That's correct. Yep.
That's great. But it's specifically what Reagan's talking about, which is, Americans are embracing traditional values and rejecting pornography and all that stuff. And he just fucking turns the radio off there. I thought that was an important piece of the film, really interesting. And he kind of built it out from there. But that was probably one of the biggest pieces for me in the first act, was just that one scene, him in the car, listening to Ronald Reagan, switching it off.
I hear you. The first thing that hits you is the cinematography and the lighting, and you said atmosphere. I wrote down mood It completely sets the tone of how this movie is going to play out. And I thought it was wonderful. There's the colors, the fog being red or black or green or dark blue. You know, it sets all the mood with these characters. But I felt that this kind of red signified something ominous coming, especially with that music, the ominous music that was playing with it as well. And I also liked the shape of, say, when it transitioned up to, we got a lot of transitions up into the skyline as well in this movie, not just in the first act, but throughout the movie. And I remember I wrote down in the first act, there were some clouds that looked like it was approaching their cabin. Like they were okay. They were just talking to each other as normal couples do. But I always felt that there was kind of, obviously it leads this way into the movie, this impending sense of doom that is coming towards them. And that's one of the themes that I felt here. I even got a kick out of when they were talking about planets. And then she says she likes Jupiter, and then Red says, oh, well, I like Saturn. Oh, I'm going to change my mind, Galactus, which I loved.
Yeah, that was good.
Because Cage is a comic book fan as well, a hardcore comic book fan, but Galactus swallows up planets. So what does that mean? It's more impending doom is coming. I don't know. Do you feel that was a little on the nose, or do you think it was still subtle enough that this is, okay? I don't know. Did you think that a lot of that's too much on the nose, the way it's filmed and they're talking about it and things like that?
I don't know if that's a yes or no question and answer there, because clearly they're creating this atmosphere, right? Like you have the ominous music. I had the subtitles on for a bit, and when the ominous music comes on, the subtitles say ominous music. So obviously they're not trying to be subtle here. Like they're pushing that atmosphere on you. So what I think works well is not, well, if you're going to do the ominous music and the lighting and stuff, that's great to set it up. But the characters as well have to play along in a sense. Like he's saying Galactus playfully. It's a joke to him. Like they're just having a conversation. It's kind of a joke. Like Galactus, like he's planets and he's doing the thing with his mouth. So they're being playful with it, but because there's the ominous subtext, which are all like you and I, as the viewer, were like, shit's gonna go down. Like, we can feel it because of how the movie's shot and scored. So that when the character's doing that as a joke, the subtext there being like, no, bad shit's coming. And we know that because we know what movie we're watching. That's good. That gives you some dramatic irony there that he's being playful with the ominousness. It's a way of being on the nose, but in the right way, not through the characters looking into the camera being like, those clouds are ominous, aren't they, Mandy? No, they're just
I'd love to hear Cage say that line of dialogue, though.
Yeah, but they're just hanging out. It works, man. It totally works.
It does. There's also some religious undertones here. Obviously, I'm sure you picked up on it, but when they talked about, like, he's a logger, they're living in this cabin in the woods where I guess his job is kind of isolated, and then you have one of this very unique title card here, and I loved how I love that title card, how it says Shadow Mountains. And then even after the Ronald Reagan thing that you pointed out, which dates the film, it does say 1983, and then it goes AD. So he specifically says AD because to me it feels like it's a religious undertone, and we could talk about what happens after with the bikers and other things that happen later. But I immediately got the feel that something, like he's trying to point out something religiously here. That was my first hint at it. I don't know if you agree, but I wanted to also ask you specifically about Mandy herself, because one thing I did write down here is there's a couple of scenes here with Red and her when they're just before anything happens, and she's in the lake, and she comes up and she goes towards the fire. She's probably skinny dipping or something, and they focus on her face. I don't know if you noticed, one of her eyes is much larger than the other. It's more dilated, and then she also has a scar on her face, which kind of just looks like I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I just wrote down, is she decomposing? Because she just seems like she was fascinated by, like, with her story about those birds and her dad. And then there was a scene with her looking at the fawn, the dead deer. And she finds a dead deer in the woods and she's crying. And then she was talking about that one book, and I wrote it down here. The book was called Seeker in the Serpent's Eye. And then she reads a passage here where, and I'll quote it here, the wretched warlock closed around the object called the Serpent's Eye, and it glowed with a ghastly emerald light. And she's just surrounding herself, lured with all of this kind of death, I would guess. And I was wondering, because of her physical appearance, is she all there? I don't know if she's human. I wrote down, is she on a different plane of existence? I just didn't know. That was one of my problems I had with this movie, and I don't know if it's a problem, it's just something that's worth talking about, is I couldn't pinpoint exactly what the filmmaker was trying to say. He left it vague and open for discussion, but it just seemed she was really special. And that's one of the reasons why that cult guy, the minute he peered at her, he said later, we'll talk about it, he looked into her soul. And just that passing by in the van, that's why he was immediately attracted to her. And because of her appearance, not just because of the scar, because one eye is much larger than the other, like her pupils. I didn't know if there was something unique about her and that she's in a transitional period. She's focused on doom, religion, death, one with nature. I was just weirded out. I couldn't put my finger on it. I still can't. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I don't know that I can put my finger on it either, but I did notice what you noticed there with her eyes being weird. The scar obviously is quite prominent. At first I was like, okay, we could talk about it in a bit. I wondered if she had a run-in with those bikers before or something like that. The eyes being weird suggests perhaps that she has like a different perception of reality, like she's on a different plane. The scar itself perhaps suggests that whether it was those bikers or something else, like she has escaped something in her past, right? And that's a reminder to her, but an indication to us that, in the eyes, that she's seen some shit. And if you want to get really funky with it, like she could be from another plane of existence, another dimension or whatever, and she's settling here in this quiet, remote, simple life, and that's who she is, like that she comes from a different place. I think what you could come down to is she kind of comes from a different place, whether it's Chicago or Alpha Centauri or fucking Dimension X. Like, she's from somewhere and she's seen some shit and she's just like trying to put that behind her, but she's radiates her past. Red sees it because she talked about that scene where she's skinny dipping or something, the lighting's real weird and her eyes are fucked up and she's got the scar and he's looking at her, and he's not looking at her like, oh man, she's so pretty. He's looking at her like, whew, that's,
I wouldn't say woof, but that's like more like he's fascinated.
Yeah, exactly.
He can't put his finger on it.
He can't put his finger, like us. We can't put our fingers on it either. And it's great because it draws us into her. Because I'm looking at it, I'm looking at her in this scene. I'm like, I can't put my finger on this, but I can't look away. I'm so compelled. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm drawn into this. And like, she's clearly seen some shit. And when she's reading those books, which are like those fantasy novels, like that's a window into what I think that's kind of a window where she's from, whether it's metaphorical or literal. That's a window into her. And again, it's strange and it's fantastical and it's larger than everything. And that's all sort of soaked into her character.
Oh, for sure. But I was just wanted to take that and say, I didn't pick up on these kind of, I wouldn't say themes, but points about the movie until we get further along. But to me, then that kind of fantastical sensibility of her is what Jeremiah, who's the leader of that cult, will talk about now. They're called the Children of the New Dawn. In a passing by in a van, he glances over, like this guy's already spaced out as it is.
Yeah.
He glances over, sees her on the road as he passes by, and then immediately can tell he wants her. Now, is this just some kind of sicko? Or is this movie trying to say he is also somewhat special and is Panos Cosmatos trying to say something here? So I want to get your thoughts on the cult here, who are called Children of the New Dawn. You now start to meet Jeremiah and his cronies who are with him. They also seem to have some kind of weird relationship with these demonic bikers. One could argue 4 horsemen of apocalypse. That's kind of what I thought about when I saw them, because there's 4 horsemen here. And they're also on the realm of, are these guys actual humans? Demons? Half and half? I have no idea, but I think it's explained later, and I want to talk about that. But what was your first thoughts about who these people are? That's just Jeremiah and his cult, as well as the demonic bikers here.
You know what they reminded me of, man? Remember that fucking vampire movie, that Catherine Bigelow movie we watched?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I saw those assholes in that band, it's the first thing I thought of was that they looked like those guys. Or a low-rent version of Lance Henriksen and what's his name there?
Paxton.
Bill Paxton. That's the first thing I thought of. I love the shot, like where they did the still, where they're walking by and they see Mandy, and just the still of her face sort of out of center.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. Yeah,
such a good shot. Yeah, no, there's definitely some good questions. We could say yes, at least for Jeremiah and his prime acolyte there. I don't know what her name was. But
the older woman, yeah.
Yeah, they seem to have some perception, but they perverted it because they were selfish. or at least he was selfish and he was just thinking of himself. Of course, he's a failed fucking singer, right? Mm-hmm. Like that totally added up. But it's like he's special and then failed at what he thought was his calling. And so he perverted his gift into this bullshit cult. And then all of his followers there, they were just a bunch of dumb assholes. So there was nothing to his accolades. There was something to him, even though he was a coward.
For sure.
Yeah. The bikers, I was like, who are these Mad Max looking motherfuckers here on these ATVs and spikes in their gear and shit? I was like, is this our world, or is this like post-apocalyptic 1983 America where somehow Ronald Reagan's president, but the bombs have already went off and there are pockets of society that still function, but then you got these guys out there doing this kind of wacky shit. I don't know. It didn't feel like it was reality at this point, which is fine, right? But I don't know, man. I mean, that one guy, he looked like he got his face run over when he was a baby, and I don't know. At this point, I was kind of wondering, did Mandy have a run-in with these bikers before? Because that guy had the spikes on his fingers, and he kind of scratched the one dude when they went to ask for help. And
well, the weird thing here is also when Mandy was reading that book, she was talking about that object, the serpent's eye, which was glowing in an emerald light.
Yeah.
Then the cult Jeremiah gives one of his guys who wants to talk to the demonic cult to call them. Then when he pulls out this weird horn, he says, I wrote it down, it's called Horn of Abraxos.
Yeah, right.
And then
Horn of Abraxos, yeah.
Which I don't know what that is, but then Panos Cosmatos, the director, he then bathes it in green light, strobe light, and it's flashing, right? So obviously hitting the nail on the head there, but he's saying that this is the serpent's eye. It's a ghastly emerald light, and they use this horn to call the demons.
Yeah.
So what do you think that is all about here? Because it'll happen again in the second act, which we'll get to. We'll see this green light appear again. And I'll remind you then, but just from what do you think these symbols mean, and what is that serpent's eye? Like, I was trying to put my finger on it. I still don't know if I can. I was curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I don't know if I'm reaching a little bit here, but back in the late 70s and early 80s, there was the satanic panic, which was the misperception that kids playing Dungeons and Dragons were part of some satanic cult, and there were like satanic rituals, sacrificing babies and all this stuff. And it was all phony. None of that stuff actually ever happened, but I wondered if he was trying to sort of tap into some of that fear of the era, the director. You get like a game like Dungeons and Dragons, or these fantasy novels that Mandy was reading, where people are reading this stuff and then acting on these satanic impulses. So on the one hand, you got this cult, and they have this relic that they're using, and maybe they're all just taken in by it, and it's bullshit. You could look at it that way, but then on the other hand, you could say, oh no, it's real. Like, they actually have this real spirit, this spiritual demonic connection to this fucked up biker gang, and ambiguous enough that you could be like, you could look at it either way. And I think that's part of what helps it work. It's, they could be doing some fucked up shit, like Charles Manson did some fucked up shit with some cult bullshit. There's just stuff that he made up. Or in the context of the movie, because of how it plays out, there is sort of a supernatural undertone to it, so you could go that way with it. I don't think it's definitive either way.
I don't know either, because to me, you get so many different shots of what's going to happen. Like, we can bring up what happens to Nicolas Cage after they get kidnapped. He gets stabbed and cut in the same way that Jesus did as well, or so they say, right?
Yeah.
I look at that as well. And there's also the last shot of the movie, which we'll talk about. We won't have to talk about it here, but I definitely felt that he's giving hints that maybe this is just a different plane of the apocalypse is maybe working its way out here. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's saying that is this his commentary on what's happening in the 80s. You talked about Ronald Reagan, and now he's making this movie in 2018, and especially with the orange rapier who's in the White House there. Is this like kind of people thinking that things have just gotten worse since the 80s? I don't know. Was there an apocalyptic situation that happened in the 80s or 1983? I don't know. It's vague. I have no idea. As I say, I'm still trying to put my finger on it. Is that a good thing or a bad thing when it comes to a movie? How's he going?
Yeah, I mean, I think is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's a good thing as far as the movie is concerned when you're making a movie, because we can kind of ask these questions. Like, is he saying, the apocalypse happened in the 80s, man, and we're in the post-apocalypse now. Like, things are fucked up, and you just need to look around to see, but the seeds are planted at this time, in this era, in the early 80s. You can make that argument. I've done lots of reading on that era and Reagan and the administration in the United States at the time, and you can trace some shit back to those years, for sure. So is that what he's saying? I don't know, man.
I don't think so.
It's going away to suggest that, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I agree with you about these bikers. I loved, again, the lighting, the mood, the way these guys were dressed up in the movie. Very demonic looking. I wrote down also, there's a Mad Max vibe here. There's, Hellraiser-esque is what I put, because you got the guy with the pins.
Yeah.
I thought a pinhead from Hellraiser there, which I hadn't seen since the 80s, so I thought it was kind of appropriate. But I loved these guys here, and they talked demonically too. It wasn't just they were dressed up. They're drinking the blood as a sacrifice, and then they want another body. Ooh, they offer up that tubby guy later, which was pretty funny.
Well, they set it up before. That if you want to offer up this guy too, that's fine. Get rid of Fatty while you're at it.
Can't find his nose in a mirror, is what they said. So it's a great line.
It's a good line, yeah.
All right, so that kind of stops the first act, because now they've got these guys, they called them with the horn. The demons here will say, they've arranged to kidnap Mandy. This is where it ends. Second act begins with the kidnapping. Just at this point, we'll pull the classic card for our podcast. What are your feelings up to this point?
My feelings to this point, very atmospheric, mysterious, really good cinematography. Love the fact that because there's no exposition, I know what's happening, but I don't know what the fuck's going on. And that the air of mystery and dread and doom is so engaging. You feel so sucked in at this point. It's exactly what I want out of the first act of a movie is, oh shit, what's going on? I want to know what happens next. And what the fuck is this thing? What are these Mad Max assholes doing over here? And why does this guy's head get run over as a baby? I gotta keep watching this shit. Just as the first act, yeah, really solid.
Agree 100%. I would even say first act is masterful in building the tension, the atmosphere, the cinematography. I loved everything about it. I was really engaged, on the edge of my seat. So let's get into what happens next here. We get the kidnapping scene where they're in the room. Again, some great lighting and visuals. Those demon bikers are slowly approaching Mandy and Red. I mean, that's an awesome log room, by the way, too. Little unsafe, especially if one's having sex or something like that. They got no curtains. Their bed is surrounded by windows.
And maybe they're exhibitionists. Yeah, could be. I mean, they're in the middle of the fucking forest. So if Bambi wants to watch them doing a doggy style, so be it, I guess.
That's a Disney movie waiting to be directed by J. Abrams. There you go.
Yeah. You wouldn't be able to see them because he's got lots of lens flares, so Bambi would be fine. Wouldn't see anything there. No, fuck, did I love... That's where they like pan up and the dudes are on sort of the hilltop in the forest and the red.
Yeah.
Light. Oh my God, that was so good.
That was awesome, man.
Terrific.
Amazing lighting. I love the way the lighting is in this movie.
Yeah.
Hands down spectacular.
Spectacular.
And then, as we talked about, I love that scene as they grab them. It's very quick. Red and Mandy wake up and then they're just shocked. But then they focus on the fat guy getting pulled away into the darkness.
Yeah.
The other sacrifice.
See you, Porkins. Peace.
That's awesome. I got a problem here.
Yeah, he does have a problem there. I love that was fucking terrifying. Like the strobe light going off and they're approaching and that was really good. Like that was terrifying. That was such a good shot. It was so scary and great. Oh man, it was great.
That was fantastic. So then she sees Red get in the face. He's unconscious. And then we cut to her and that old woman. And then she gets stung. I guess she gets a little bit of acid trip there. They put the drugs in her eyes not to get absorbed fast. And then they sting her with some...
What the fuck I don't even was that?
I have no fucking idea. But they just say, I love it. She goes, this is just the cherry on top. Okay.
Yeah, that was... Oof. Oh.
My first thought, have you ever seen the movie My Girl where Macaulay Culkin gets killed by the bees?
No, actually, I have not seen it. But...
So sorry, spoiler alert.
Well, no, I don't know. Maybe it's beyond the scope of the podcast, but I have a story regarding that particular... fuck it, you can edit it out later. When I was in junior high and that movie came out, and I never saw it, and I was sort of half friends with this fucking asshole in junior high, and he's like, oh yeah, Macaulay Culkin dies from bee stings. I'm like, Macaulay Culkin not gonna die in a movie of bee stings, fuck you. And he's like, I'll bet you $5 that happened. I'm like, fuck you, I'll bet you $5. And obviously I lost that $5, and that's my story. So continue.
Great story. Well, I was just gonna say, if this is what happens, it's cherry on top. Man, he must have gone down with the biggest rager of all time.
Yeah.
He got stung by 1,000 of those things. So,
yeah.
Anyways, that's what I wrote down. That's where my brain went to. So, but anyways, they know that she's all lucid on her acid trip at this point, and then she's brought before Jeremiah. So what did you think of, I'll let you talk about the scene, what he says to her, what he's all about, and what happens to her at this point.
So when she's drugged up and she's in their whatever room and they're all drugged out or whatever. And this was actually really good because they manage a few things here, for better or worse, perhaps. So we see, what's his name, Jeremiah. He's got his bullshit record and his...
Right, and did you notice who the band is?
No, I did not.
The Carpenters.
Oh, I did notice that. The Carpenters. Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah.
So again, religious undertone here, maybe on the nose because Jesus was a carpenter, right?
Yep.
So
and I wondered if there was a John Carpenter second level on that, sort of B-movie horror at the time, but maybe not. But yeah, the Carpenters. But he's such a fucking loser. And he takes out his pathetic looking dick and his bullshit record there. And he thinks he's hot shit, right? See, he's got a record. Yeah, I'm a rock star. Suck my dick. And
yeah, you just knew a full frontal was coming when he was wearing that robe, right?
Oh, 100%. And it's unfortunate for her, but she just starts laughing. That's her moment of power over him and his bullshit and these fucking assholes. You're a joke. Look at your tiny cock and your bullshit LP. Fuck you. And that was awesome. Mandy's a boss. So that was great. I really like that scene. I think it's subversive because at this point in the movie, you kind of want to be building up the bad guy, but here we're cutting him down. They were scary before, with the weird biker dudes that they're, have an alliance with. And obviously they're creepy and they got this religious shit going on. And then you get to this scene and it's like, this dude's a fucking joke. And his acolytes are a fucking joke. And she just laughs them off. I thought it was a really good play there because you could do it the other way where you could show them to be really powerful and she's at their mercy. Obviously it doesn't turn out great for her later, which we'll talk about, but yeah, that worked great.
This was a good scene for Mandy because she turned the tables on him immediately. She had the power. Despite what we'll get to, she loses her life as a result of this. But what did you think of the way this was filmed? I know Jeremiah is all about this bullshit. Like, he's got nothing here. There's nothing to him and his cronies or his acolytes or his cult. But he just kept going on. He was at this pit, and then he realized the light, and God shone light on him and stuff like that. Did you want more from this? Or, as I think you already alluded to, you were happy that there really is nothing to him and these people at this stage in the movie?
Yeah, I didn't want more from it because that would have legitimized this guy. And I think that we did want, I felt satisfied that he was a piece of shit and that you could see right through his garbage. And even when she's laughing at him, he's trying to you can see he's trying to jerk off and he can't get through her laughter. He's trying to get through her laughter by jerking off and he can't do it. And he's got nothing. He's powerless. That was great. Now, the only thing from a cinematography perspective is they sort of superimposing their faces.
Yeah, I was going to mention
on each other. He's trying to show her that they're the same. They're doing that back and forth where it's superimposing and then it fades out and then it fades in again. He's pushing to say, we're the same.
Oh, exactly. And I think that's where the drugs come in because that's how he got those other people to join the cult or get followers because, they were drugged up. And then that's the director kind of saying, this is what they're seeing at that point. That's how they're initially lured because then he's becoming convincing. And that's where the drugs are coming in. At least that's how I was interpreting it. Almost the same. You're me. And then that's what I'm seeing. And then, yes, I will join your cult. But she snaps out of it and laughed at him. So power to her. The only thing I'll say is I agree with everything you're saying here. From Mandy's perspective, it's better that it serves the story and he's not legitimized. The only drawback of this is then, does that put an end to this whole subtext? Is this really some kind of religious act that's going on here? Good versus evil, God versus demons, or God versus the devil, or anything along those lines? Does that end that conversation at this point then?
Not necessarily. And I guess that would depend on how you might feel how powerful or legitimate evil would be. You know what I mean? So they can still be the embodiment of evil. And the fact that they don't have legitimacy or real power, that might still be evil. Is that what is evil? If you look at today in 2018, the greatest evil is some big dumb orange motherfucker who doesn't know his ass from his elbow. That's evil, is ignorance. And assuming that you're more than what you are when you ain't shit. So, no, not necessarily. That is what's bad, is that you can be a fucking dumb retard, some big dumb idiot, and still have power. Like, that's what's scary.
For sure. I agree with that. But that was something that I was kind of conflicted on, was saying, and part of me wanted more of, which I guess we're using the word legitimate. Maybe I wanted him to be more legit for that sake. But I agree with what you're saying, that you don't need to be that powerful to be. You can just be some dumb motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's reality.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I wanted him to be more, I don't know that it would have worked. I might have wanted him to be more supernatural.
Maybe, yeah.
But that might have scales the movie in the wrong direction. I don't know.
Well, the funny thing is we'll get into it now. I mean, into the next act when it's dealing with all about Nicolas Cage. And his journey is that it also still is conflicting. It's not consistent. Is he fighting on some greater power or a different plane? Or is he just a guy out for revenge? And I guess we'll get to that. But let's just finish this act up. So at this point, because she's not buying into his BS and is laughing at him, he's done with her. He's going to say, I'm purifying this bitch. I'm going to burn her alive. He stabs Cage again with that knife that Cosmatos then films in that green glowing light. He pulls it out, stabs him in the similar fashion that Jesus is apparently stabbed. For some reason, Nicolas Cage, aside from a little groan, is okay with that. What, a 6-inch fucking knife? I don't know if you noticed that. I saw that scene twice.
Yeah.
Fucking say it wasn't a small little cut. Fucking that thing impaled his lung.
Nick Cage equals Nick Cage, greater sign, Jesus.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So then they burned her alive in a bag being hung up there. That was a dry heat, man. She lit up fast.
Yep. Gasoline probably helped.
But she turned to ash pretty quick there.
Yeah, that was...
didn't seem realistic, but
no,
that's just a movie. But I liked Cage's acting here. It's all silent. You see his agony. He's screaming, but you can't hear it. I like these scenes. I like the shots of when Mandy's burning. You see all the other acolytes. They all have different reactions. There's the one girl who's not horrified, but she's sad. She knows that she's fucked, stuck in this, and she needs to get out. There's the one kind of retarded motherfucker who's just pointing guns in his finger and saying boom. The old lady, she's happy. I found the interesting thing was, if you watched Jeremiah's reaction, he's leaning forward watching her burn. He's not happy. He's kind of slightly angry at first. He's got kind of a grimace around his mouth. Then he leans back and I don't even know what he's doing, but it seems like he's sad that this had to happen there. So I found that interesting. So what did you think of these scenes?
Yeah, so the expression on his face, like you say there's some complexity there because it does represent a failure on his part. Like he couldn't turn her into one of his followers, and the rest of his followers are kind of reacting as they would react. I don't know, maybe I'm a softie in my old age. I don't enjoy watching a scene where people suffer like this. I don't know, it's part of the movie and it's not gratuitous. And it hit me where it was supposed to hit me. Like the movie did its job because I felt it. Like, and as we're supposed to, right? Like she's getting burned alive in front of Red and it's not supposed to be pleasant and it wasn't. And I don't like it and I'm not supposed to like it. But it's also not supposed to take me out of it. And I think that's just me, that I find it hard to stomach that kind of suffering towards the characters in a film. I don't know. That's just me getting hung up on it. It works. Like it does what it's supposed to, and it works. And it really sucks in an emotional perspective, which it's supposed to. And I just have trouble separating it sometimes because I don't like to watch suffering.
I hear you. This is not gratuitous at all. But I just felt what made me, I wouldn't say have the feels, but what engaged me here was just watching Nicolas Cage and his anguish all over his face. Can't hear anything. And he's tied up and he's so still. He's got barbed wire around his wrists, around his mouth, which is gaping open. So he can't move. He's got to be still, otherwise he's going to be sliced in half. But he's just suffering in sadness and horror and anguish there. So I thought that was an effective scene, well played by Nicolas Cage. So they leave him. So I'm assuming at this point you're still 100% on board moving forward, right?
Oh, absolutely. Two things. I don't like to watch characters suffer that I have an investment in because I was really digging Mandy and now they burned her to death alive. So in that sense, I'm a little frustrated. I don't know. It's hard to describe. I'm like, well, I was really digging this character and now you burned her alive and that's a really horrible way to go. So fuck you guys for doing that. But now I'm like, I can't wait to see how much Nicolas Cage is going to fuck up all these motherfuckers. So yes. He's going to turn these guys' brains inside out and that's going to be great. And that's exactly what they wanted me to feel. Yeah. So they did their job there and that's terrific. And there is some religious symbolism here. I don't know that you want to make Nick Cage or Jesus? Well, fuck it. Maybe you do, because the barbed wire is like crown of thorns.
Yep.
So it's not too on the nose. You can believe that these guys have tied this guy up in barbed wire, and I saw that, I'm like, ooh, man, that's got to be painful.
Well, later he gets the nail through the hand in different scene.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He gets the nails through your hand, yeah. But it works. It's not really all that on the nose, but it's enough there. You make the connection without rolling your eyes. There's a scene in Man of Steel, which we've talked about on the show, where Superman's fallen to Earth.
And then he does the Jesus pose.
He does the Jesus pose. His arms. All right, fuck it. I get it, man. I know he's the savior. You don't need to do that with the Jesus thing. It's so obvious.
That's obvious.
That's obvious. And this is not as obvious. So I appreciate that. His arms aren't splayed out and he's, doing the whole thing. They're doing the subtle Jesus here, not the obvious Jesus. So good for them.
So I'll just also add, I don't know if this is going to help your argument or go against it. She was wearing a shirt, which is 44. Later, after Nicolas Cage changes, he puts on the same shirt, which is a 44. So I was just curious to see is there a significance to 44. So if the number 4 has some angelic and religious undertones to it through numerology, and the 4 elements of earth, wind, and fire, and there's some religious things there too. And then 44 doubles up on that and says, then now you have to go through a trial with your hands and you have to go to work. And I found that kind of interesting. Is that the reason why he was wearing a shirt that's 44? What was the significance of that? So that's what I got. Just a quick Google on the internet.
Okay, so there's 4 points on a crucifix or a cross.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know.
That's me reaching, but why?
What's the 4? What's the work? What's the going to work?
Well, Nicolas Cage is going to go to fucking work now.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with the 4, though?
I don't know. That's good.
Oh, okay.
That I don't know. So
okay. The only thing is there's 4 points on a cross. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah.
That's fine. So now we have Nicolas Cage. He gets himself out of the barbed wire there, Mandy. What did you think of the scene when he's in the bathroom screaming and crying? Did this scene work for you?
Yeah, because it's just one shot, right?
Yeah.
He comes in, it's just all one shot. So I like it whenever they do that. And I bought his performance. He looks kind of goofy, wearing his tidy whities and his shirt. It's hard looking at him and he looks silly. He's at their place, right?
Yeah.
But he knows where to go to get the fucking bottle of booze in the bathroom there. He didn't have to look around for anything. It felt like he was at home. I was just confused at his location.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a weird place for a toilet next to some armoire. Yeah, it was odd. Yeah.
And there's booze in there that he's drinking. But
you don't drink booze on the toilet then? Come on.
Well, I do, but I don't keep booze in the bathroom. I bring it with me from my bar like a classy motherfucker. No, I don't keep it in there. Because if you keep it in there, then anybody who comes over to your house and uses your bathroom will drink your alcohol. You got to keep it in the living room where you can monitor that shit. That's just Alcoholics 101, man.
I just remember, again, going back to The Simpsons when Homer's hiding the booze and he lifts up the lid on the toilet and he takes the can and then he does the chest twitch.
Yeah. Regardless of all of that, good performance. Like he's the anger and the anguish and the sadness all rolled into Cage madness. That worked for me.
I'm a huge fan of Cage. I think he can act. I didn't buy the scene. I thought it wasn't goofy because he's in his tidy whities. I just felt that he went in a direction. Like, I'm happy that, to me, it seems that Panos just let Cage be Cage and said, I support whatever you're going to do here. You figure it out, I'm going to film you. And Cage went for a certain way, and who knows how many cuts they did, but I probably would have done a different take. Because I didn't like the, he's screaming. I get the fact that he's angry, he's devastated, he's confused, he's also injured. So he's trying to douse some of this with the booze. He needs to drink it. I have no problem with the booze there. I just felt that it just came across, you used the word goofy. That's kind of how I felt. Mm-hmm. I had a goofy smile on my face enjoying Cage be Cage here. I just felt it needed something a little different, which I know he could do, even in his cagiest performance. But I felt it was just a mishmash of different emotions that, to me, which signifies someone who's broken. He's trying to find something here. Is he transitioning into a different state of mind that he has to go to? But I didn't know what to make of this, and he lost me a little bit here. I didn't enjoy this. So that's what I felt. So from this point, they cut immediately. He goes visits a little buddy of his, Bill Duke. He's looking a little frail, though, here.
I thought he was looking pretty good, considering that he's been eviscerated by an extraterrestrial hunter.
You're talking about the Predator or Arnold?
Yeah.
Because in Commando, he did get destroyed by Arnie as well. So,
well, consider he's been obliterated by Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Predator Still pretty good.
Yeah, he's a little old here, but to me, he looked a little frail, but I always appreciate some Bill Duke. Yes, from Predator and Commando days there. And here they talk now about, because Cage says, Jesus cult, demonic bikers, it's crazy evil. I love that. Just crazy evil. I love that one line.
Yeah.
So Cage does that well here. But then we get the description from Bill Duke about the demon bikers. They're called the Black Skulls. And he says that they're just a bunch of bikers who got fucked up by a special batch of LSD. And since then, they've just been, fucking crazy. Were you a little disappointed with this explanation? Because now we were talking about, is this an apocalyptic war? Are we on to a plane of existence? Is there something different happening here? Because now, to me, they're at a point now where they're just some fucked up dudes. That's it.
Man, yeah, I think there's actually a lot to unpack here. So what did work here is, he's like, oh, there's been stories. Like, there's these legends. Like, we don't know what's happened, but there's these stories that have come down from the mountains. So there's that folklore going on, right? And
that's awesome. And but then they end it with they're just a bunch of guys who got a little too much LDS. So.
Yeah, a little too much LDS. But I guess depending on how much you want to talk about, like they could have been fucked up on LSD, they could have been fucked up on crack or heroin or the marijuanas. But it could be that they chose LSD in particular for a few reasons. The CIA experimented with LSD and their like mind control experiments and stuff in the 60s and 70s. So there could have been like a tone there where up from on high, like these guys are fucked up. Or the fact that people who use LSD, like they talk about it giving you sort of like a window into other planes of existence, heightened perception and things like that. Like these guys took this fucked up LSD and now they become something like, it's not that they're just fucked up on bad LSD. It's like they become something else because of it. Something like they saw beyond the plane of existence. Like, for example, like where she was reading those fantasy novels, like they saw into the reality that was like that. It's not just bad LSD. It's like that's what bad LSD will do. Is like you get what's your reward is you see beyond our plane of existence. You see this fucked up shit, and then it fucks you up. That's kind of what I pulled from that, and they're in pain from seeing what they've seen. It's not like they continue to do bad LSD. They did the bad LSD. LSD doesn't stay in your system like the myth of it is that you always have it once you take it. That isn't true. But it's that they saw what they saw, and now they are just permanently fucked up.
Well, they're corrupted by it.
They're corrupted, exactly. They peered into the gates of hell and like, oh, fuck. Now they're fucked permanently. There's nothing else. That's it. They're fucking evil now.
Well, I can buy that. Your explanation improves the scene for me because I was crushed at this point. I was saying, really? Fuck, man. They're just a bunch of losers on LSD? I was disappointed with that explanation.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if the way you're interpreting it, I wish it conveyed more that way in this scene by Bill Duke, saying we just really don't know, because rumor has it we don't know. So he could have said something similar. Rumor had it that they just wouldn't say peered into the gates of hell, but just something they saw just fucked them up in their beyond return. And now
I think he could have thrown a line in there like that, and because his ability to deliver a line like that probably would have gone a long way.
Yeah. You scared, motherfucker?
Yeah, well, he could have been like, saw into the gates of hell. The stories are they saw past the gates of hell, and they never came back.
I'm going to have me some fun.
Have some fun. I'm going to have me some fun.
So, after this point, now, Nicolas Cage is just on his revenge journey. It's just a revenge tale at this point. I'm not going to go to the nitty-gritty here, I think, of all the different kills he does. First, he goes against the bikers. He takes one down on the open road. Then he invades the house, kills them there. There's that fucked up thing with that guy. Looks like he's got that dick weapon from Seven. He's going to fuck somebody up. Like, what the fuck was that? I think in the credits,
he was credited as Fuck Pig, I think was...
Are you serious?
I think so.
Fuck Pig. Oh.
I think so.
Good timing.
Yeah.
Fuck Pig. Okay. So I found that amusing and horrifying at the same time. But I just want to be blunt. Like, then you have the chainsaw fight, and then he gets into the church where their kind of hideout is. I don't know if I want to get into a lot of the details here. I want to hear your comments on all of these scenes here.
Okay. When he encounters Fuck Pig and the other dude there in the house with the fucking Richard Dreyfuss mountain of cocaine, I thought, not that Richard Dreyfuss mountains of cocaine, like the Close Encounters mountain of cocaine there. He goes in for some. No, that worked for me. I loved the chainsaw battle. I thought was great. We're in a revenge thriller, so I need to see him like just terminate these motherfuckers with extreme prejudice, and he does so in terrific, gory ways. These guys all have it coming, and that is part of the point of making a movie like this, is to just make sure that the bad guys suffer horribly. So we're at the end of storytelling at this point. Like, the story's been told, and now he's just going to go and kill these assholes. Mm-hmm. So he gets to be Cage. Not too much, but he gets to be Cage. A little crazy, wild-eyed, and murder these guys. I don't know. It was good. It was good. I felt a lot of satisfaction out of him killing these guys. Now, a couple things. I assumed he was like a Vietnam vet, just based on the time frame.
Yeah, because all of a sudden he's busting out these martial arts moves and...
Yeah, he's a vet. He was in Vietnam. It's 1983. He's of that age. He obviously served. That's got to be the case, right? Like, he's Rambo, basically. Only his PTSD is really bad because he will fuck you up with... But where did he get the mold for that demonic axe that he made? I mean, it was awesome.
That was awesome. I love that demonic axe.
Awesome,
that was awesome.
I'm like, how did he get the mold for this fucking thing?
I have no idea. Rambo 5 coming up, it'll be double the size of that, but...
We have Rambo 5, Rambo Goes to Hell, and he has that fucking axe, and he chops Satan in half from the ass up with that axe.
Just remember the difference between Cage here. He's avenging his loved one. Rambo just wanted something to eat. So everyone has suffered just for a sandwich.
Exactly. It's just, I'm so hungry, guys.
He says it himself. All I wanted was something to eat.
Hey, that's fair, man. I mean, how hungry do you get? Like, you see a Subway and, like, you don't have a $5 for that footlong? You get pretty angry. I mean, I'm not forging a demonic axe over it, but I might use a 50 cal. And I don't know. I liked it when he fucking threw that axe and cleaved that dude's skull in half there. I mean, this is all... It's good at this point. I don't want to say I'm feeling good because it's awful, but it's good. But it's satisfying.
See, I think this is the point where I think we might disagree on this film, is I felt that this third act as a whole, the revenge part, left me completely unsatisfied. I felt that the scenes were far too quick. The action was not satisfying, and I think that was maybe could be his shortcoming as a director. This is only his second feature film, so maybe they needed somebody to stage these scenes a little differently. I'm not saying we need to see Hard Boiled here or something like that, but it just felt everything was simple and quick. The only thing that stood out for me was obviously when the guy pulls out the one chainsaw, it's massive. I mean, that was a awesome moment. It's pretty funny, and I liked how he died. He fell on it, and he's just getting sliced open or something like that. That's what we're made to believe. But outside of that, I really didn't dig a lot of the scenes here. The atmosphere's still there. The lighting is still good. Things are still creepy, especially with those demonic bikers and what fuck pig, or pig fuck, whatever you call them. Everything else just felt underwhelming. And Cage, I wish, was just a little bit more cagey. That's just me. Because to me, he's now going down this path of darkness. I don't know if that's a commentary about revenge. I don't think so. But just this whole apocalyptic feeling, supernatural, it feels like he's now chosen to sacrifice his own soul to avenge her. And he has now gone down this path, and now he's lost his soul, or he's on some other supernatural plane of existence or path. I still don't even know what it is, but I just felt that just these scenes here as a whole just left me wanting more. I was a little underwhelmed. I was surprised because I was enjoying myself all the way up to these points when he started the revenge journey, and then it just kind of resolved itself very quickly. We're talking about, what is it, like several different areas in 15 minutes? Everything's wrapped up very quick. I was underwhelmed. If you weren't, that's okay. But I do have one question for you. He does go visit this guy who's got a tiger. And he's telling him about where Jeremiah is hiding out. Who did this guy represent to you? And I didn't get who this guy was and how he fit into the story.
No, missed it. I have no fucking clue who this guy was.
Yeah, it's very strange because then he just leaves.
Okay, so Cage wakes up where he's chained where his hand is nailed to the floor there, right?
Yeah.
And then he kills those dudes, and then he leaves, he gets his axe, and he leaves there, and he kills that one dude outside, and it's right after that, right?
I don't know if it was after the demonic bikers he killed them, or he got this information before he visited the demonic bikers. Because I don't think he killed anybody at his house. I think he visited Bill Duke, and then he's like watching the roads because Bill Duke said they go on the roads at night, and then he spots one with the crossbow, kills one, follows the others to a place, kills the other demonic bikers.
Yeah.
Then he visits this other guy with the tiger.
Then he visits the tiger guy. But
yeah, but I don't know
where
exactly.
Yeah, but it was after he killed the bike, like the first group of bikers. It was after that.
Yeah.
So was it in the same area?
I don't know.
I was unclear on that too. Yeah.
So I was just wondering at this point, that's why I was confused. Is he now just like a messenger of God? Like he is essentially Jesus fighting in the apocalypse? Or he's one of Jesus's men on this journey, serving. That's what I mean. I didn't know how this is fitting in. Are we still on a supernatural path, which is, I got all the way up to where Bill Duke was talking about these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then now again, it's like at the end of this movie when he kills Jeremiah, Nicolas Cage is now, to us as the audience, he has a different voice, a deeper voice, a demonic voice, or kind of a supernatural voice, and he says, I am God. Kills him. It's just not clear in this third act. I didn't know how to feel here.
The end, like what you're saying there, I think I agree. I'm not exactly sure what happens other than the fact that he manages to kill everybody and crush that dude's skull with his bare hands, which is awesome.
Which is awesome.
I'm not sure it's possible.
Well, unless you're the Mountain, no. And it's Game of Thrones, but it was an awesome scene. But then that also brings up the fact that if it's just a regular human being now, did he get transformed? He's now pulled into this war or into this plane of existence, or we're talking about something else. Like you just talked about the bikers. They peeked into the gates of hell through LSD and now they're fucked. They can't come back. Did Cage now through this journey also peer into or get involved into this to a point of no return, which we can argue about. The last scene in the movie is he's driving off, he's looking at Mandy, he's going off into an open road and it's darkness. And behind him there's a backdrop of what looks like an apocalyptic landscape.
Yeah, and an alien apocalyptic landscape too, right? Because they got two moons in the sky. And
yeah, it's like the Quiet Earth.
It is like the Quiet Earth, yeah.
I didn't know what to make of all this.
It could be, I mean, I was just thinking now, just like thinking back on it, because when he gets captured, right, and he wakes up and he's got the nail in his hand and then he kills those dudes, right? After he kills Fuckpig there, he does some of his drugs.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He does some drugs.
So maybe that was when he crosses over into this other landscape, right? Where things are just, you could say not real or not terrestrial or not natural, right? He gets the supernatural at that point. He does their bad drugs. Now, you don't snort LSD, at least I don't think so, but that doesn't really matter. And I don't know, does that go, if we want to go all the way back to the beginning when he's listening to Ronald Reagan?
I was just going to mention, what does this mean about that thing, piece on Ronald Reagan? Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right because there's porn on in that scene when he kills Fuckpig. There's that he's watching porn in that scene, so it's all right. Well, you want porn and drugs? This is where that's going to lead you. But I feel that's incongruent with the film because they're making a movie that's glorifying the revenge. They fucked up your girl, dude. Now you got to go and you got to make sure that they get what's coming to them. So I want to try to reconcile those messages. Are they saying that the conservative traditional values are bullshit, or are they saying that those are the values you should be sticking to and this is what happens when you don't? If you're going to do drugs and watch porn, this is the road. But it doesn't feel like that can be the message because when he fucks up that dude with the chainsaw, it's, yes, feels good. Yeah, fuck that dude with the chainsaw.
Yeah, it's a conflicting message. And that sums up perfectly how I feel about this whole third act. I'm completely conflicted, not just in the way it's filmed, but the messages it's trying to convey. I'm completely confused on what's going on here. Yeah. I don't know how to feel. So we talked about the demonic bikers meeting their end. Anything about the chainsaws there? Did you enjoy that, or how did that pan out for you there?
The chainsaw battle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I dug it.
I dug it.
It was pretty fucking rad, actually. It was kind of like that scene in Pulp Fiction where Bruce Willis is searching for the right weapon to go and fuck those dudes up. He comes down. He's got his demonic axe. When he looks at that chainsaw, and he knows chainsaw because he's a logger, right? And he puts down his awesome forged axe, picks up that chainsaw. He's like, I'm gonna fuck this guy with this chainsaw. And he's like, can't get it started. And that thing, and that dude picks up a chainsaw that's 9 feet long. It was great. It was just really good. I thought it was a well choreographed fight. Really good scene.
I thought it was a great reveal to the 9-foot chainsaw. That was a chuckle, and it was like, oh yes. But then the rest, I was underwhelmed again. I felt the fight was not where it should have been. Again, I feel that I'm a little shocked because this is a guy whose dad filmed Rambo First Blood Part 2, Cobra, Tombstone. He's a classic 80s guy, director, like a B-movie film director, of course, an action film director, but still, there's a way to stage these things. And I felt I was really underwhelmed by these battle scenes. I thought that this scene could have been more here, and I was really disappointed. Especially from the teaser, you see the two chainsaws clash, and it's, oh, fuck yes. And then this is it? I like how the guy dies. He falls on the active chainsaw, and you see that like the bird's eye view shot of him getting sliced. That was awesome. But the fight itself, I was like, I wish there was more there. That's just me. I wish it was just almost there, but not quite. Not enough for me, but maybe that would have been pushing it. I don't know. They only had $6 million, I guess, so...
Yeah, it was a low-budget film.
So maybe they couldn't do much more there, but Cage should have taken a pay cut to get that scene a little bit more there. So let's get into the finale here, where he invades this church area where these guys are hiding out underneath in the basement or the catacombs or whatever it is. I think he let the girl go earlier, right? The young girl?
Yeah, because he sort of hijacked the truck and killed the older dude by the end of the axe through, and then she was there, but nothing happened. Yeah.
That's right. So it's just only the old lady and then Jeremiah. Yeah. She's pleading with him. I guess she'll do anything for him. But, off with your head.
Yeah, he gives her head instead.
Oh, yeah. He gives her head instead. That's correct. Nice play on words. Then he goes and has that showdown with Jeremiah. And I like the way this was filmed. Again, I'm curious on your take on how Cage is looking here. He's completely bloodied. It was kind of like McClane at the end of Die Hard there, but he's more demonic. His voice is deep. It's demonic. Yeah, as I said, he says the word, I am your God. I'm your God now, or something like that. Kills him. And then you talked about the cowardice of Jeremiah, which just shines in spades here. He's saying, you can't touch me, you can't harm me. And the minute he grabs him, he's going, oh, suck your dick, man, whatever you want. Just leave me alone. But then, madman as he is, he does find it within himself to still curse Cage right before his head gets squished like a grape. What did you think of all of these scenes here to wrap it up in terms of Jeremiah's end?
I like how it's shot where he kind of comes into, it's like they're at the bottom of a well or something like that. So it looks really good. And I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, they reduced Jeremiah really to a sniveling coward, but he goes back and forth where he's trying to still preach. And he'll preach for a bit and he'd be like, all right, man, I'll suck your dick. And then he preaches a little bit more. No, I'll really suck your dick. And then he preaches a little bit more. So he's a coward who's trying to get out of it by any means necessary. I don't know if you could crush a dude's skull with your bare hands or not. This was tough because I don't know that there was a fate for Jeremiah that would have fit. Nothing would have been awful enough for him. So the barehanded skull crush, I guess, is the best option there. But there's no other insight here. We've got the supernatural and the religious stuff going, and nothing else happens with Jeremiah. And maybe that's a good thing. If he had said or delivered something profound here, would that have undermined Red's quest? This dude actually did have something going on. It's like at the end of Kill Bill, when David Carradine and Bill, he actually has some shit to say to Uma Thurman there, and it's, oh shit, yeah, man, that makes sense. If something made sense here, then wouldn't that have made him right? He needs to just be a fucking cowardly douchebag, and he kills him. That's kind of what needs to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I found some of this a bit anticlimactic a little bit, but again, my mind wandered immediately to, is Nicolas Cage now something else because of all of these religious undertones? But he deserved what he got, Jeremiah, the head squish. But, because it's just a human being, can't be done. But then I was thinking, okay, then Cage is now something else.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case, because it's not consistent. But that's okay. Maybe the movie can leave things vague, open for discussion and interpretation. And that's also a strength for a filmmaker. But let's just talk about now these last two scenes. Jeremiah's gone. Cage is on his way out, driving out into the woods, the dark woods. His journey is complete, or is it? Because he sees a vision of Mandy sitting in the car beside him, and he has that goofy smile that you see, which only Nicolas Cage can do, and then he peers forward, and they move forward, and then you get the final shot of the movie as it pans upwards. We talked about in the background is a post-apocalyptic landscape, whether it's Earth or something else, and you get the two moons, but it's definitely something of a battlefield that looks like it's behind there, something strange, and that's how the movie ends. What did you think of that? What's your interpretation there?
I'm not sure. I'm still asking myself questions about that. It's out of a heavy metal magazine, as are like a number of scenes are read out of heavy metal. It does kind of suggest that that's it. Like, we all fucked. It is the apocalypse. Maybe we don't know it. Maybe now he's gone through this experience and you and me are still looking at, Starbucks and the Gap.
Are we living that nightmare?
Well, yeah, exactly.
1983.
Right. But he could see it. He's gone through the gates of hell and discovered that it's here now. This is where we are. This is where we all are.
Well, I think that date's significant because, maybe Panos Cosmatos said, well, after Return of the Jedi, nothing else was the same, so...
Yeah, nothing else matters.
So, 1983, it's the end of the world now. Can't top this. So.
Yeah, he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's open for interpretation completely. You can be right or wrong on any of this.
And that's part of what's good about a good movie is that you can't really come to a conclusion as you're asking yourself the questions. I mean, it could be that nobody's right. Reagan's values are all bullshit, that the opposite values are all bullshit too. And it's just like, it's too late. Like, we're all for fuck. I don't care if you're, you could have your traditional values or progressive and like, it doesn't matter. Like it's hell now, like it's over. Mm-hmm. But he sees it. Like he can see past all of it. They were, living in nature and just hardworking conservative people. And she kind of represented the other end of it. She got murdered and he had to go and he went through hell and he comes out of the end of it and he's in it. He went through hell and he comes out at the end and is like, well, it's hell now. It's all fucking upside down. There's 2 moons in the sky and the landscape is toast. Like, it doesn't matter. And that could be what it is. Nothing matters now. What matters is nothing.
Yeah.
He's a nihilist is, I guess, what it is.
Yeah, I don't know, man. As I said, I don't really know what to make of this third act. And I think maybe this is a good segue for us to get into our final thoughts. I'll give you the honor of going last, so you can have the final word. But before we do that, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, man. What the fuck was with Cheddar Goblin?
Oh, yes. I love that. I love that little commercial. Cheddar Goblin. The minute he comes out, and when he frees himself from barbed wire, we see that commercial on the TV. His TV's still on, and you see Goblin rising out of the macaroni. It's a kid's macaroni commercial. Yeah. I have no idea. That was awesome.
Well, it's good, yeah, but it was just like, this is terrifying. And also, strangely, I'm hungry now for some reason.
Yeah, he stops there and says, Cheddar Goblin.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. He is like, Cheddar Goblin. Like, why? Why?
I think Nicolas Cage threw that bit.
Maybe he did. That would be the only thing that would make sense to me.
Anything else?
I think that was it.
All right. I'll get into my thoughts here. I'm struggling to know what to think of this movie. I think that the way this movie is filmed, and I think we can agree on this, the cinematography, the lighting, the atmosphere is almost second to none. Masterful in its craftsmanship. And I think that's the main draw to this movie. From what I hear, Beyond the Black Rainbow, which is Panos Cosmatos' first and only previous film, it has a similar lighting and atmospheric mood to this. And I think that makes a very story fairy tale-esque atmosphere, which I really do enjoy. That in itself is a rare antiquity. I love the first 2 acts of this movie. I was engaged. I was engrossed. I think the highlight of this movie is Mandy herself. She was fascinating to watch, and I felt she was the most compelling and the most intriguing character, even though this is really a Nicolas Cage vehicle. And I loved Nicolas Cage for the most part in this movie. The only problem I have with this third act, and I felt that the movie here struggled to find an identity. What was it really trying to be? Was it trying to be more of a thought-provoking thriller, or ask something that's going to ask you questions about humanity, about one's soul, about one's journey? Or is it something that's going to be just a nightmare and an action movie and a revenge tale, and there's a journey there too that can be had with the character? But I felt it dropped the ball on both parts. It didn't fulfill either of that fully, because I get half of a movie one way and then another half of the movie trying to be a generic revenge thriller. And I felt that it just didn't mesh well. The minute the third act started, even though I was hyped for it, even then the action scenes just fell flat for me. So it's not something that I can feel that I can rave about in the end. And that's really unfortunate. I was really stoked to see this movie. I think the performances all around for the most part are excellent. I think Nicolas Cage does a very good job in this movie. I heard a lot of reviews that he was the most cagiest that he's been in years, and I don't agree with that sentiment. I think he was subdued and restrained, and that was a good thing. I think he had some scenes where he went a little cagey, and some scenes where he was just down to earth and normal, and some scenes where he was just where he was supposed to be. It was a good acting performance, but I just think people who rave about this film are getting lost in the way the movie is lit and the mood and the atmosphere, which is beautiful, stunning. But that's not enough. Do I think this movie is a rare antiquity? This is a tough one. I do say yes, simply because of the way it's filmed. I think there's enough there that I think someone should go see it for that aspect. But I'm having a hard time giving it a solid recommend, because I do think the third act drops the ball for me a little bit. And that's really upsetting for me. I really wanted this to be a home run. And I think with a few minor tweaks, it could have been. I just wish that there were some elements that had a through line a little bit more through the movie where I could really understand what the director was trying to envision here. Because I think it was a hodgepodge of ideas. So that's what I think. So again, it does get a rare antiquity simply for the direction and the cinematography, but not enough for a full recommend. And I don't know if that makes sense to you. What do you think, Geoff?
Shit. I mean, I think that it does contradict itself in its messaging. And that does make it confusing, especially in the third act. It's like, all right, which way are we going here? Which way? So it's challenging. I like the fact that we have a revenge, like it's a revenge thriller that is challenging. Because when was the last time that happened? Like you can watch, let's say, Taken, right? Liam Neeson. Good movie, basically a revenge thriller. And there's nothing going on in that movie other than what's happening on the surface.
I can tell you one, Jaws the Revenge.
Jaws the Revenge. Is there anything else going on in that movie?
I don't know, man. That was a joke.
What's funny, here's what's funny about Jaws the Revenge is it's the shark who's getting revenge. That's what's great about Jaws the Revenge. He should just eat all of those fucking people and that would be satisfying. So this one, it's hard to know where to come down on which direction. And I like the fact that we can be asking questions like that in a movie like this. That's good. So is it a rare antiquity? 100%. They don't make movies like this. They look so good. And like the pacing's really good. And the performances are like, it's not a conventional movie from 2018. It's not a conventional movie from 1983 for that matter. It's good. They don't make this movie. This movie's not made. So that's a rare antiquity for me. Would I recommend it? Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. I really dug it. I was totally absorbed into this film. And like the third act, as problematic as like you raised really good points, although I thought the action scenes actually really worked for me, I was glued to the screen. So yeah, go watch this fucking movie, man. I don't know. Is it muddled? Maybe. I don't know. I kind of want to try to write an essay on this film and see if I can figure it out. Because it's got some shit going on. And I'm happy it's got shit going on. It's great. And a revenge thriller with Nicolas Cage, it's got shit going on. Fuck yeah. Terrific. Go watch this movie. It's not perfect, but go watch this movie.
I mean, Nicolas Cage losing his shit and with actual shit going on too. I guess that's a win in most cases, even though I say it's a slight minor not recommend fee. But that does it for today's episode. Mandy, Geoff, do you have anything else to say about this movie, or do you want to enlighten the audience and myself of what's happening next time?
Yeah, we're going to put the crucifix in Mandy here, and we're going to move on. And I felt the need to lighten things up a little bit. We've been a little heavy last couple episodes. So we're going to lighten it up. We're actually going to go back to another Canadian film from 2011 starring Sean William Scott.
Oh.
Goon.
Oh, Goon. Okay.
Goon. Yeah. We're going to put a little hockey into our lives here, and that's what we're doing.
Well, nothing wrong with some hockey. Always a pleasure. I've heard of this movie, haven't seen it, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, so cheers, looking forward to it.
Oh, awesome. Can't wait. Well, that does it for today's show. Thanks, Geoff. Hopefully this year we'll be able to hit and review and have some discussions a lot more frequently than last year. So here's to that. And we're almost at episode 50, so hopefully we'll get there soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it, man. Got a big list this year, so let's do it.
All right, I'm in. 100%. All right, cheers. See you next time.
All right, next time.